I the antagonist for ignoring my boyfriend when he made me dessert? So some background information, I, female 23, have a really messed up sleep schedule and I have for years. Basically, I go through phases where I am unable to keep myself awake throughout the day. What happens is the tiredness builds up so much at random times that I physically can't keep my eyes open. Doing anything feels like I'm walking in slow motion. My body feels like it is being pulled down by bricks, and it is genuinely impossible to stay awake. My body will force me to sleep even if I don't want to. My boyfriend, male 26, knows this. I've talked with him about how difficult this has been for me, for example, staying awake at work and school. I often sleep at odd hours. My sleep schedule is pretty inconsistent and unfortunately, I don't have much control over it. There was one day I slept for 23 hours. I woke up to use the bathroom and could barely keep my eyes open, so I went back to sleep. Couldn't hear my alarms or anything. So on Friday night, I ended up falling asleep at 8 p.m., which is a great and normal time. However, I know if I sleep any time before 10 p.m., I will wake up around 1-2 a.m. and be up for a few hours, so I avoid doing that if I can help it. Later that night, I woke up around 1 a.m. and saw that I had 15 missed calls and many texts from my boyfriend. He had made me dessert and wanted to stop by and drop it off, which is incredibly sweet. His texts were along the lines of "I'm coming over now, I'm outside, I'm here, I'm waiting," and then like half an hour later I wanted to give you dessert I made. Thanks for ignoring me. I guess I'm going home. He gave no warning that he was coming over except for the "I'm coming over now" text that he sent at 10:30 p.m. He never asked to see me earlier in the day or anything. He also never spontaneously shows up like that. We always plan out what we're doing beforehand. Of course, when I woke up I felt so horrible. I apologized and explained that I was asleep and did not see the texts or calls and thanked him for his kind gesture. His response was, "It's whatever." He didn't say goodnight or anything after. He's basically been ignoring me, been super short with me since then. I'm getting annoyed with him too. I understand that it would be upsetting, and that night I understood him being upset in the moment. But days later, I genuinely don't feel like I'm at fault here. So, am I the asshole? It's not your responsibility to drop everything and instantly reply to someone's text, especially if you are busy or asleep. It's weird and unsafe for someone to just show up at your house without getting confirmation first. Get a sleep study done, but it's not your fault if someone can't handle not receiving an immediate response. Am I the antagonist for not hosting my father at our home and for not paying for his hotel? I, Lily, 34 years old, and Jason, 31 years old, are getting married in August on a tight budget due to our focus on saving money. I have student loans to pay off and recently bought a house, leaving us with little extra cash. My father, Mason, 62 years old, wasn't very present in my life growing up after my mother, Beth, 60 years old, divorced him 32 years ago. He missed birthdays and was absent during my upbringing. We're not accommodating any guests traveling for the wedding at our home due to limited space and wanting privacy on our wedding night. It's important for us to have our home to ourselves during this busy time. We've set up hotel blocks near the venue to offer discounts for our guests, understanding that travel expenses may be prohibitive for some. My dad, flying 3,000 miles with his wife for our wedding, has 2 government pensions and his wife has a good job. He also works part-time for extra cash, making over $30 an hour. Despite his financial stability, he tends to over-discuss his finances with me and boasts about his wealth. However, when we visit, he often leaves us to pay for everything, insisting on expensive outings and meals. Even when I was a struggling university student, he would make me pay for my share or contribute to groceries for family dinners. During his visit last summer, he ordered extravagantly at restaurants and made my husband feel uncomfortable by expecting him to cover the bill. He even complained about using points to treat his grandson to a movie. My dad dislikes spending on others and goes to great lengths to avoid it. My father says he can only afford 3 nights at a hotel, which has upset my brother. He's angry that we're not hosting our father and his wife, and that we're not covering their hotel costs for 1-2 nights. Jason and I feel it's unfair to pay for their stay when they take multiple trips to Mexico each year. While they have the right to spend their money as they wish, we believe they should have budgeted for our wedding. We simply want our home to ourselves on our wedding night and the week leading up to it, without the added stress of hosting them. Jason and I simply don't have the extra money right now. Despite explaining this to my brother, he's upset that we won't cover any nights for Dad. I've made it clear that we won't discuss our finances further. Now my brother is calling me horrible, selfish and cheap, and refuses to believe me. He's pressuring me relentlessly and insists I'm lying. He can be very mean when things don't go his way. Even my mother believes I should pay for Dad's hotel stay. Am I the a-hole for not covering my father's hotel stay or hosting him for our wedding? I paid my own way when he got married in Mexico and never expected anyone else to cover my expenses. I'm getting mixed responses from people, and I'm not sure how to handle it. Any advice would be appreciated. Your father is the asshole for expecting you to pay for him and his wife. Tell your idiot brother he can pay for Dad's hotel room if he cares so much. It's extremely uncommon to pay for guest stay. He can either come or not, but the expect is on him. Do not discuss the matter with your brother or anyone else. If they press, thank them for volunteering to pay for it and suggest they tell dad right away. My husband intends to ask me to open the marriage. How do I tell him I have no intention of letting him near my future baby? Victor and I met 5 years ago, and we've been married for almost 3. When we were dating, I told him that under no circumstances would I condone cheating. If he cheated and I found out about it, that's it. I'd cut off all contact and he'd never see or hear from me again. If we were married and or have kids, we'd only go through our lawyers. He told me he was glad I had standards and the past 5 years were great. Not perfect, but I believed we were happy. We decided to try for a baby last year. My due date is in 16 weeks. I was over the moon happy and I believed he was too. He told me when we were dating that he didn't care if we had only boys, but he always wanted to have at least one little girl for him to pamper and spoil. When we learned the baby was a girl, he cried and told me I was the best wife in the world. That was until last weekend. Victor went out to get groceries but left his phone in our room by accident. I decided to take it down to the kitchen so he wouldn't be scrambling looking for it when he got home. As I was walking to the kitchen, a text message popped up. It was from his work wife, Alicia, 30 on a female. It said, "So the plan's on." I don't know why, but something about this made me suspicious. Victor is the type of man who uses the same passcode for everything, so I was able to access his phone. Well, I checked his messages, and I learned that he intended to ask me to open the relationship so he and Alicia can start going out. I've never met an open relationship that's ever worked out, and a number of people I've talked to have told me that an open relationship is usually because someone is already cheating and wants to continue guilt-free or has someone in the wings. And it's clear that if he and Alicia aren't sleeping together, they certainly intend to. I was able to get screenshots of the text messages going back as far as I could and sent them to myself. I've also packed a bag and headed to my older brother's, Oliver, 32 male, house. He opened his doors to me when I told him what happened. As I didn't want Victor to know that I know, I just left a note saying that Oliver had an unexpected emergency, and I headed over to help him. Victor just asked me to stay in contact and he loved me. I have an appointment with a lawyer in a few days. Honestly, I feel disgusted. This man knew the whole time that I'm not going to play these kind of games, and he went ahead and decided to mess around and find out. But I don't want to play my hand just yet. Maybe I'm being petty, but I want to catch him as off guard as he caught me off guard. I don't want my baby to be around a man who believes it's okay to make a promise to be loyal and faithful, but decide to break it to chase some tail. What kind of message does that send to a child, especially a girl? I don't care if he wins Father of the Year. He still thinks it's okay to treat the woman he vowed to love, cherish, and honor for the rest of his life like a side piece. Victor has been trying to call and text me asking if I'm okay. Oliver has been texting him back as me because I don't think I can talk to Victor without blowing my top. What do I do now? How do I tell him that not only did he choose Alicia over me, but I don't want my baby to grow up believing this kind of thing is okay? It's definitely important to speak to a lawyer and get everything in order before letting him know about the separation. Co-parenting is crucial for the next 18 years, and parental alienation can have serious consequences for a child. And seriously, expecting your pregnant wife to be okay with an open marriage is just beyond stupid. Am I the antagonist for answering my mother's husband harshly and humiliating him during a family party? I was raised by my dad until I was 14. My mother did not want to be a parent, and she left my dad and me while I was still a baby. She did not pay her child support payments. She quit jobs left and right so she didn't have to. She even went to jail twice for failure to pay, and the every other weekend parenting time she was given by the courts despite her lack of parenting me. She rarely, if ever, took. She never took the full weekend anyway. She met her husband when I was 6. From the ages of 6, which is when my mother and her husband met, to the age of 14 when I lost my dad, I saw my mother and her husband 5 times. After my father died, I lived with my uncles. My mother didn't show an interest in taking me, though her husband did, but my uncles were people who wanted me and who I had a close and loving relationship with. My mother did not take any parenting time after I lost my dad. She and her husband had 3 kids together. Her husband attempted to insert himself into my life during Father's Day activities, and he'd asked me to live with them, but I mostly ignored all contact with him. One time he attempted to tell me I was missing out and blamed my dad for that. I shut him down firmly and I was harsh. I told him he had no right to speak about my dad, who was better than his wife would ever be. My mother's extended family, parents, siblings, etc. are always part of my life. Dad facilitated those relationships. My uncles continued after he died. Now I am 27 and stay in touch with them. We're not very close, but I do appreciate their presence in my life. They were even invited to my engagement party last year. This brings me to the core issue. My grandparents were hosting a family party for a birthday. They invited me and I went. My mother and her husband were there, and so were their children. My mother's husband approached me about getting engaged and wanted to know why they weren't invited as my family. I told him that wasn't the correct topic for the party, but he should know why. I started to walk away. He said he wanted to be the one to walk me down the aisle at my wedding, and wanted to know if I would allow him that honor. because he always considered me a daughter, and he wanted to show me he could be a better dad than I ever had. I lost my temper with his choice of words, and everyone heard me say he wasn't going to be walking me down any aisle, and he wasn't good enough to be my dad. I called him pathetic for hating on the man who gave me a good life when his wife didn't give a shit. He became angry and told me I should be more respectful. I decided to leave, and a few hours after I got a text from one of my mother's siblings saying I shouldn't have humiliated him so publicly. Am I the asshole? Your mother's husband has absolutely no right to insert himself into your life, blame your father, and try to play happy families at your wedding. It's ridiculous that he even thought he had a place in giving you away. It's completely justified for you to be angry and cut off contact with them. If he didn't want a public response, he shouldn't have approached you publicly. Enjoy your wedding and marriage without them interfering. I'm trying to talk my friend out of wasting $5,000 of his $8,000 savings on a social media mentor. I mean, maybe this is a pointless post because he seems determined at the moment, but I tried to incept enough doubt in his mind as possible to the return on investment of this action. He's in a tough situation and desperation is clearly driving him. He's a great guy but undocumented, unemployed, and uneducated. And because English isn't his first language, I feel like he's more susceptible to grifters using buzzwords and clickbaity language that normally make me distrustful and truculent, at the least lulled. But he's staying at my place for a week, and he's doing video calls, this guy who, in my opinion, seems like a social media hustle porn type motivator. The type of bullshit I can't stand. He's charging my friend $5,000 to teach him skills on how to lock real estate contracts between sellers and investors, with access to his investor database. I don't know where to start on this. Maybe because I'm older and much more cynical, but I desperately tried to explain to him that he'd be better off putting that towards some kind of actual tuition. But my friend's argument is that will take too long and he needs money now. And he is 100% convinced that after he gives this Daniel Salinas guru a huge chunk of his savings, that he will be making tank a month in 2 months. What the heck? And my friend is hell-bent on becoming a millionaire. That's fine. We all would like that, however. He puts so much of his self-worth into that dream, and I really saw his desperation come out last night. And I tried explaining that I work with super successful and wealthy people, and not one of them I could ever imagine saying, "Thank God I paid $5,000 for that online mentor 10 years ago, or I wouldn't be where I am." By the way, I tried researching this social media influencer dude, and nothing came up other than his Instagram and TikTok accounts. To which I said, red flag. I see no way to verify any of the claims he's making about what he's done for his clients, victims. I'm convinced he's a bull artist. My friend thinks he's the answers to all his problems, and I'm thinking I'm wasting my breath. My friend is actually good with cryptocurrency though, and that's how he got his savings, but he's going to blow it all. When we debate, he's actually making a good case for investing in a proper educational channel, but because that could take 12 months, he thinks it's pointless. Anyone have anything more convincing I can tell my friend? Or should I just look the other way at this point? I hope he comes to his senses. Everything is telling me that he's being taken advantage of and manipulated by social media. Even though I'm the one with a career in savings, I'm not a millionaire, so I don't have the right mindset. That really annoyed me. It sounds like you've already tried to offer some sound advice to your friend about their spending hats on online gurus. It's frustrating when someone you care about is making poor financial decisions, but ultimately they have to learn for themselves. Maybe suggest to him to join the FIRE movement for some free financial advice. Good luck. My wife rejected my request to dance at a wedding, and then immediately said yes to someone else. My wife, 51 years old, and I, 50 years old, have been married over 23 years with young adult children. We love each other very much, and we have what I would consider to be a good marriage that is great at times, but could be even better if we worked at it more. At times we struggle with resentments over past issues that we have never made the proper time to work through. No affairs or infidelity. Just past issues where we were passionately not aligned on important decisions, or the stresses of providing for and raising a family. Most of the time we were aligned, but the times we were not still cause some lingering resentments that flare up from time to time. I provide this as some broader context as I suspect some of my problem may be just that this is a straw that broke the camel's back. We are just beginning the empty nest phase of our marriage, and we recently attended a destination wedding for some younger friends, in their early 30s. My wife and I were both looking forward to some time away for us, and the fun of getting dressed up and having a great time dancing and partying. I was really looking forward to it as these are some good friends of mine, and the wedding location and events were awesome. Most importantly, I was really looking forward to spending one-on-one time with my wife, as when we go out, it is typically with friends. We were having a great time at the wedding and my wife looked gorgeous in a beautiful dress, and I looked great as well. The photos are amazing. Early in the dancing portion of the evening, one of the single guests asked my wife to dance while I was talking to the bride and groom. I was a bit annoyed but took a deep breath and let it pass as it was brief. After my wife and I danced and my wife was taking a break, the father of the bride asked my wife to dance, and she said yes. I danced with our two friends, male and female, to pass the time, so again, not a big deal. The point is that we don't really have an issue if either of us dances with friends, and weddings will sometimes stretch this rule as you always meet some new people, but dancing with strangers is not okay. Neither of us would ask someone else to dance. The real issue for me came later near the end of the evening. I was still dancing in a group, and I walked over to my wife who was taking a break and asked her to join me as I love dancing with her. She said that she was too tired and said no. She said her feet hurt from the high heels. At that moment, the father of the bride stepped next to her and asked her to dance again, and she immediately said yes. It was a real slap in the face to me, and I was immediately embarrassed and angry. It happened so fast it was like whiplash. I can tell you that she likely did it out of politeness, obligation, or some inability to say no, even if she wanted to say no. When we spoke about it later, she said she can't explain why she sometimes does this. There have been other issues like this in the past. However, I can't seem to reconcile what I know about her versus how it hurt me. It was more of her saying yes to someone else over me. A stranger's request or need is somehow more important than my request or need, and I think that is likely the heart of my frustration. The bride, who is also a friend, came over to dance with me as I realize in hindsight that she likely knew there was an issue, as a relative went to break up the dance between her dad and my wife. It was at that point I realized how drunk the father was and learned that he was divorced. The bride's father was roughly 10 years older than my wife. This just made me feel worse, as I realized this was no longer an innocent dance request, but an issue I needed to resolve. At that point, I realized that I needed to gather up my wife so that we could head back to the hotel, as the bride's father was clearly drunk and enamored with my wife. It was causing an issue for me, the bride, and the bride's family, so it was time to depart and not create a bigger issue. When we got back to the hotel, I let my wife know plainly how badly she had hurt and embarrassed me. I was clear that the hurt was caused by the no to me and the yes to someone else, and the fact that we possibly created an issue at the wedding for the bride and her family. She immediately apologized and said she did not mean to hurt me and that she doesn't know why she does that sometimes. She really did not want to dance with him but felt she couldn't say no. While I can understand where she is coming from, it doesn't change the fact that I feel like she chose someone else over me. This isn't the first time something like this has happened, but it is definitely the worst incident that I can recall. It has been almost a week, and I still cannot get past this. Neither of us have brought it up to each other since, but I am not acting the same any longer. I don't want to be physical with her, and it is like a switch went off where I don't want to spend time with her. It is not healthy and I don't like feeling this way. Am I blowing this whole thing out of proportion? If not, I am not sure the right way to proceed. It sounds like your wife struggles to say no to others, but that doesn't necessarily mean she doesn't respect you. Communication is key here. Have a kind conversation with her to set boundaries moving forward. It's important to address any resentment or bitterness before it ruins your marriage. Create opportunities for one time instead of waiting for events to provide it. Remember, disappointments happen in relationships, but it's how you navigate through them that truly matters. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.